Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Today is a learning show, folks. It's a learning show. This is something that I've been asked to do. Yesterday, I spent some time in Starbucks as soon as the show was over, and I met a new person, and this new person was so interested in finding out exactly why it is that I'm such a supporter of Medicare for All. Why is it that progressives are pushing Medicare for All as the only solution? Again, may I state, as single-payer Medicare for All, the only solution to our health care issues or health insurance problem or health care issues all around it's an absolute statement, and it's something that we have to get across, something that we have to ensure that we inform people correctly why that is the case. Now, folks, if you're just joining us, it is imperative. This is a very, very important show. Welcome aboard, Deborah Berman. Welcome aboard, and all the other folks that I haven't gotten to yet. Now, this is a very important program. And why is it very important? Because, folks, now that 52% of Republicans are supporting Medicare for All, now that 85% plus of Democrats are supporting Medicare for All, and over 70% of all Americans are supporting Medicare for All, the corporatocracy, the plutocracy will begin the assault of fear, and they are going to start having you fear Medicare for All. I am here today to tell you that going forward, Politics Done Right will be one of the great supporters of Medicare for All and making sure that people are informed appropriately, making sure that the lies that the corporatocracy is going to be putting out there in order to confuse you, in order to tell you that it's more expensive, in order to tell you that your jobs are going to be lost. All these issues have to be mitigated. And that is exactly what we are going to be doing on Politics Done Right, day in, day out, day in, day out. It is imperative, folks, however, that you share this program. If you are on right this minute, one thing that I ask you to do right now is to share on your wall, share on your page, share on your Twitter, share everywhere. And why is it that we need to share? Because remember, in as much as we have the freedom on the internet, as much as we have the freedom on the airwaves, in as much as we have the freedom in all these other places, the fact is that all these things right now are controlled by the corporatocracy, and we have to find means around it. Right now, we have some flexibility with Facebook still. So what I'm asking you folks, go ahead and share right away, please. Share on Twitter, share on Tumblr, on your Facebook wall, share on your Facebook page. It is so important that we get this going. It is so important that we get this going now, folks. So very, very important. So I'm asking you again, let's go ahead and get all this stuff shared out there. Make sure that all folks that need to see this stuff, they are going to see this stuff the way they should see this stuff. It is so important, folks. Anyway, today the subject is going to be Medicare for All. Today we're going to discuss two parts, right? Exactly why. In other words, why we, or I should say three, why we need Medicare for All, or why do we need single payer? And I explain how the system works right now. And after I explain how the system works, I explain how the current system works, what Medicare for All pretty much is. And after we discuss what Medicare for All pretty much is, we discuss some of the portion of it that's going to be used to scare you to death. There's a part of this whole entire thing designed to scare you to death. And let me get that chair out of the way. Designed to scare you to death. And again, that is what we have to mitigate here. We have to make sure that they are unable to do so. And that is what we are going to do with this program today. I'm trying to mess with my coloring here. The saturation is not very good on our picture. So bear with me as I try to adjust some of that. Well, I don't know. I may not be all that good in getting all the colorization correct. So I'll just leave it that way and leave it the way it is. Okay, not done too well, but hey, that is what's important. Anyhow, let's get busy. Let's get started. And what I'm going to do, first of all, look, what you're watching on TV with Judge Kavanaugh is kabuki theater. I have watched bits and pieces of it, but for all practical purposes, I am ignoring it. And why am I ignoring it? Because here's a fact. The outcome is already known, and there's nothing we're going to do about it. What we have to do, as I spoke about before, is mitigate that, right? And that is make sure that you can get as many progressives elected as possible. Because what we are going to have to do is make sure, remember, this government is divided into three parts: the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive. The executive execute the laws of the legislative portion. But here's what happens in this country, right? If corporations don't like a law, they challenge the law. So in other words, the executive may have passed the laws generated by the legislature. And so two bodies have said, okay, this is what we want. And then there's a judiciary, right? They talk about separation of powers and equal powers. It's not completely that way functionally. And I'm getting to Medicare for All in a minute, folks, but I need you to understand this and why I'm telling you the kabuki theater. I'm not concerned about that because I'm worried about electoral politics right now. And in electoral politics is where we are going to mitigate what's going on in the Supreme Court. Here's the deal. What happens now is we have these three branches of government. The legislature and the executive can pass laws and get it working as it should. But what happens with corporations now that they can invest money in wherever they want, and now that they have judges that they purchased, Kavanaugh being a purchased judge, what it means that they can do now, folks, it's very important that you notice that, is any law that they deem they don't like, they just go to the people they purchased in the Supreme Court and say, declare this law unconstitutional. So in effect, they can nullify anything passed by the Congress, anything passed by the president, anything passed by the Congress and ratified by approved by the president. And here's how electoral politics solves that. When it reaches a grotesque form, all the legislative has to do is pass a law, and this takes a whole lot, but it means you have to have progressives all through the states and the Senate. There are two options that we have. One, if we believe that these guys if the Supreme Court is working out of scope, it is in the interest of the legislative and the executive to impeach the judge. So the legislative body has that power to impeach the judge. So that is one of the options that they have, that they say, okay, you guys keep nullifying what the executive and the legislators have come up to. We will start the process of impeachment. The second thing, of course, is to have the law be specific. In other words, if they say we want to have the ACA as written legal, and the other option is if everybody in the country wants it and corporations don't, you go to the states and you get an amendment passed. That one is the almost impossibility. But what I'm saying is worst case scenario. When you have a completely rogue Supreme Court, which is where we are heading to, that is what not right with this one person, but eventually, if we get these shenanigans, we'll have a rogue Supreme Court. That is a constitutional way to mitigate a rogue Supreme Court. Two things: individual judge impeachment, which should scare them into not going too far, and lastly, going ahead and running the other process known as the changing adding the constitutional amendment. Anyhow, today's subject is about Medicare for All, and what I need to do is get this baby updated, or rather get logged into my pad. And you know something? There I go. All right, so today's topic is single-payer Medicare for All explained and how to transition to it, right? How do we transition to Medicare for All? And the thing about it is it's not a very easy transition, and that is why they have the ability to scare you into thinking, even if it's better for you, the disruption is going to cause, unemployment is going to cause for the hundreds of thousands of people that work in the healthcare industry, not in healthcare industry, but in the insurance industry. That will be a problem. All of that can be mitigated. Anyhow, subtitle of the show: it is imperative, if you're just joining us, folks, imperative that you share the program on Facebook Live, or rather on your Facebook wall, Facebook page, on your Twitter, and everywhere else. That is how we get the message across. That is how we ensure that the corporatocracy cannot come out there and fool you about what is so bad about Medicare for All. Look, it is simple and it is very, very simplemente simple. Okay? So now, it is imperative that we start discussing not only the benefits of single-payer Medicare for all, but what transitioning will look like. We must fend off the forthcoming fear tactics that will be coming from the plutocracy. Remember, all of this was designed in the Powell Manifesto to ensure that, I mean, you don't see anybody sitting down and plotting, how do we screw the American people? That's not how it's done anymore, right? It's all done by inference. It's all done by creating false institutes, the Heritage Foundation that makes lies look plausible, that makes fallacies look plausible. That is how they do it. And the average American citizen who doesn't have the time to monitor these things, that is how they're ultimately fooled into voting against their own interests. Anyhow, everybody's talking about single-payer Medicare for all. The concept is simple. However, the disruption that will occur during the transition is the most dangerous headwind supporters must face. I want to explain what the program could look like. Secondly, it is imperative to explain what transitioning will entail. You see, the plutocracy will use the fear of disruption to reinstitute fear into the American psyche. It is for this reason that progressive activists promoting this program must get down and simplify it in a manner everyone can understand. They must also point out that businesses that have been pilfering Americans for years will use all kinds of tactics to scuttle any transition. It is hard to give up easy-free money, and that is what they have had for decades. They have had free money for a long time. Your money. The fact that over the decades, I've been paying over $1,000 a month in insurance and with anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 deductibles. It's a sin. It is evil. It is evil that every single year they're extracting this kind of money out of you. And you know the funny thing about it is I'm probably just going to drop dead because I rarely go to the doctor unless it is immediate. Call me stupid, it's okay. But I rarely go see a doctor. But I have always had in the back of my mind, because of a self-employed software developer, website developer, all that good stuff, because I was always self-employed, I never wanted to trigger that pre-existing thing. Okay, I never wanted to trigger that pre-existing thing. So I never went to the doctor. Now, it's funny because as soon as Obamacare came into effect and they had the yearly thing that everybody got a yearly exam that was a part of their premium, people like to say, oh, free yearly exam. People want something for free. No, we are all paying for it. I never got subsidies at all. Zero subsidies on the ACA. But the ACA saved me. ACA sent me for a particular procedure. They found a little polyp and was taken care of. But the point is, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives were saved just for that one piece of the ACA, where people would never have done these things because of the same fears that personally I had. Because had 10 years before Obamacare, had I decided to go and continue checking on health and all that kind of stuff, and something was deemed a pre-existing condition, what would have happened then to me is my personal economy would have been destroyed, because the type of insurance that I would have been able to garner, or if I would able to get it at all, would have been monumental. And what that would have meant is for any illnesses thereafter would have come out of pocket. Out of pocket meant then I would have to mortgage my home, etc., to pay off these ridiculously inflated bills that this capitalist system as defined today is creating. So folks, what I'm trying to tell you is this is serious business. For those of you who work for big corporations or for corporations that give you great insurance, happy for you. You're not the majority of the American citizenry. And the thing about it is, as the bottom of the citizenry go, eventually you will too. Those of you who work for corporations have noticed for the not so well-off corporations, all these premiums have been skyrocketing for everybody. And what the companies have done as they raised the premium and started paying less of your premium, the first thing they did was use Obamacare as a scapegoat. They were lying to you, of course. But that's what they did. That's what the corporatocracy does. It washes each other's hands. So that's what they do. Now, it is important for us to understand that if we are to move forward, we are the ones who must define what we want. We are the ones who must tell the politicians the type of society that we want. We are the ones who tell the politicians this is how things are going to be. After all, they don't work for them, they work for us. They don't work for the corporation, which, by the way, for those who don't know, no law, corporations are actually people as well. A corporation has an identity of its own. The only difference, it's the richest human beings, the richest set of human beings on the planet because they're corporations. Anyhow, folks, first we're going to have the blog of the week, and then we're going to discuss these things that we spoke about. So, folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, here is the weekly blog post, and this one is quite important. This was staged last week on the front page of Daily Coast. I'm going to kind of go through it fast so that we can then go ahead and talk about how the system currently works, why the current system cannot be best explained other than saying it is an evil system. And secondly, we'll discuss what single payer really entails. And thirdly, we'll discuss what are the factors that folks are going to use to scare you away from Medicare for All. Anyway, title of the blog was "Progressives and Democrats Must Now Support Medicare for All Unabashedly." For too long, pushback against single-payer Medicare for all was coming from both the right, the center, and the center-left. Early on, they could use the fact that the polls indicated that most Americans, and specifically Republicans, did not want it. Senator McCain's last act of defiance was to prevent the total capitulation by Republicans to the capitalists by virtually overturning the Affordable Care Act. Obamacare is not all that great for many, but it slowed down the rate of increased bleeding. The ACA is a stopgap measure until we can achieve a real moral health care system where we cover everyone. The article titled "Politicians Screw Us on Healthcare Because Our Gullibility Makes Us Forget Math," written right after the McCain vote, points out the following. Here it goes. We may have dodged another bullet. John McCain's decision not to vote for the Graham-Cassidy-Trump care bill will temporarily maintain the status quo. Our healthcare system is severely defective, and it is our fault. We allow politicians to obfuscate the math all know by using smoke and mirrors to detract us from the reality we should be able to see. If every major industrialized country, and again, this is important, folks, if every major industrialized country in the world have health care that covers the entire population, why can't the United States? If they cover their citizens at a fraction of what it costs to cover Americans, then how can adopting a similar system cost more in the United States? If life expectancy and medical outcomes are the same or better than our country, how can we claim to have the best health care? Politicians, Republicans, and establishment Democrats alike want us to believe that there is something fundamentally different between Americans and the rest of the world. Why? Because if we understand that a French, Canadian, British, Swedish, and Danish person's health wants and needs are the same as Americans, then the debate will become a math-based discussion. That math-based discussion or that math-based conversation would show that the only logical conclusion is that America must migrate to a single-payer Medicare for all healthcare system. Close quote. The article further details the con and the reality. The piece, "Why Health Insurance Companies Are Doomed," does a reasonable job of explaining why for-profit insurance companies are doomed in the long run. Progressives continue discussing and educating the masses about single-payer Medicare for all. Groups like Healthcare for All and Physicians for a National Health Care Program have been instrumental in that education process. It is a mathematical certainty, I repeat, it is a mathematical certainty that having one payer for medical care is less expensive than having multiple payers. In other words, all things being equal, having several insurance companies pay health care bill is very wasteful. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. I repeat, anyone who tells you that for-profit insurance, that multiple insurances can somehow ever be less expensive than a single payer, they are outright lying to you. And it is a mathematical fact that they are lying to you, my dear friends. Please, please do not forget addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's all you need. That's all you need to know that they're lying to you when they tell you that Medicare for all is not less by orders of magnitude less expensive than having multiple insurance companies. And we'll go through that in a minute. they are asking you to deny math. They are asking you to forget that you are smart. They're asking you to forget that you know arithmetic. Folks, there are certain things that are gray and certain things that are gray that are not black and white, right? Big government or small government, that's a gray area. I want big government because I want government bigger than any possible corporation because I don't want to be ruled by shareholders. Anytime you want corporations bigger than government, then you're saying you are at the whims of a feudal system. You are okay with private investors controlling your well-being. Private investors only care about one thing, the well-being of their investments. And the well-being of their investments mean more profits. And more profits mean more money taken away from whom? You. So I do want big government, but there are some people who want small government. They don't mind. They somehow believe in that the privates, there's some benevolence to the private sector when that is anathema to reality. But we can debate that. If you're willing to subject yourself to, if you're willing to be enslaved by a few, some people are willing to do that, then that's fine. We can talk about how much enslavement we're going to fight for, how big or small we want government. Remember, government is not some insidious entity. Government is not some thing on the side. Government is we the people. We are government. We decide who is going to serve us, and when they no longer serve us, we allow them to not serve anymore. But in the case of a company, individuals only have the power of the money they spend with them. But the thing about it is, if you're in a monopoly and if you sell gas and you can only buy from Shell, Exxon, and Conoco or whatever, the few, you don't have a choice when they form a consortium against you. Only government, we the people, has the power to do what's necessary. Anyhow, we have turned the corner. A vast majority of Americans now support single-payer Medicare for all. 70% of Americans now for it. CNBC reported the following. The vast majority of Americans, 70%, now support Medicare for all, otherwise known as a single-payer health care, according to a new Reuters survey. That includes 85% of Democrats and 52% of Republicans. Only 20% of Americans say they outright oppose the idea. So 80% of the people are fine with single-payer health care for all, Medicare for all. Medicare is a very popular program, so the idea of expanding it to everyone is popular as well. Larry Levitt, Senior Vice President for Health Reform at the Kaiser Family Foundation, tells CNBC, make it the advantage of Medicare for all, which is much closer to how the rest of the world provides health care to their residents, is that you can achieve universal coverage at a low cost. You can get universal coverage at a low cost. The article points out that the American dissatisfaction was partly responsible for the change in perception. For at least a decade, most Americans have been dissatisfied with the country's largely for-profit healthcare system. According to Gallup, in a poll last year, 71% of respondents said the system is in a state of crisis or has major problems. Healthcare in the U.S. is criticized primarily for its inefficiency, inaccessibility, and ever-rising cost. And testimonials that demonstrate the pilfer that occurs reinforces the need for a major change. A single-payer system simplifies who is responsible for covering costs that gets rid of some of the issues that stem from the complexity of the current American system, like balance billing. In a recent incident reported by NPR that have since gone viral, Drew Culver, a 44-year-old teacher and triathlete in Austin, Texas, had a heart attack. He was rushed to an out-of-network hospital and had stents implanted. A network is a list of hospitals, doctors, and other medical providers who are covered by a person's healthcare plan. Out-of-network providers are either not covered at all or covered at a much lower rate, leaving the patient responsible for much or all of the resultant bill. Almost 18% of the hospital's admissions end up with some sort of out-of-network claim, often because someone goes to a network hospital but ends up getting care from an out-of-network physicians. I mean, that is how the thievery works, folks. All these physicians that go into your room, they simply walk into your room, do a little test on you so that they can put bill. Okay. Among those who can't afford the ensuing costs, most say they didn't realize they were receiving care outside their insurance network. Culver went home after 4 days. Though he asked the hospital bed and was asked from his hospital bed and was assured that his insurance would be accepted, his portion of the bill came to almost $110,000. Ouch. $110,000, my dear friends. That's nearly twice his annual pay. NPR notes, under a pure Medicare for all plan, those issues would go away completely. He could never find himself in that situation. Absolutely, nunca podría encontrarle en esa manera. Nunca podría hacer eso. He would never, ever, ever be in a situation like that. Okay, continuing. Americans are waking up. Americans are waking up, people. Americans are waking up. And you know what? We are happy that Americans are waking up, because here's the deal. Here is the real deal. And let me get this up here. Here's the real deal. If we don't wake up, each of our personal economies, we're dead. Americans are waking up. Politicians no longer need to fear that their constituents will view them as some sort of communist. Now, if the politicians follow the lead of the progressive grassroots, they will be brought home. If they follow the direction of the plutocracy, we will ensure their eventual demise. Make no mistake about that. We will ensure their eventual demise. Folks, listen, this is it. It is incumbent that we steer our candidates to the reality on the ground as opposed to the reality presented to them by the general failed consultants. After all, we've lost the House now in 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016, following the same bad advice. Why would we repeat the insane methods that gave us those results? Why? Why would we do that? We shouldn't. If Democrats expect to win, they will need the support of voters who believe they are voting for a real change. Democrats, progressives, independents, and disaffected Republicans in most districts that normally vote Republican will not support a Democrat with Republican-like proclivities. If they want a Republican, they will go for the real thing. Democrats who do not support Medicare for all will lose more votes than any marginal votes they may get with the Republican light stance. Folks, the telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number, 646-716-5812. I would love to hear, before I get started, if any of you have any comments that you want to make. If you have comments that you want to make, I'll be more than happy to put that on before I go into my soliloquy. And of course, you can always interrupt my soliloquy. I never mind if you do. But again, it is important that we understand what's going on here. Okay, so since I don't have any calls yet, again, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. And then I'm gonna go. You know what I better do? Let me go to the to the page and see if I have anybody that really wants to go ahead and give us some other information here before I get started. Because what I'm gonna want to do, folks, is tell you how the evil system works right now, and let you understand why it is that we need this. A lot of people just think that they believe it. They believe. Well, it looks like I got a call. So let me go ahead and take the call, and then I'm going to go into my soliloquy. All right, let's go ahead and get to 832-722. Those are the first 6 numbers. 832-722. Come on in.
Hey, Egberto. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Okay, so I was actually make a point of view about the cost of healthcare and whatnot and the government intervention. You may or may not be familiar with with who intersex people are. People that are born, with an anatomical, chromosomal, or hormonal difference. People have heard of hermaphrodite. No one's actually born with both sets of genitalia.
Right,
Sometimes
I've heard that. Yeah.
People aren't born with the uterus or whatever. So what usually happens, or whenever kids are born with indeterminate genitalia, they usually push, the doctors usually push, the surgeons usually push to make the child an infant, because to them, and this is, I'm an intersex advocate, but this is really what they say. It's easier to make a hole than a pole. So for them, it's easier to create female genitals and other secondary characteristics, so
right.
that they can, basically assign a sex to this child. So what usually happens is that, a lot of us can't pay our mortgages. We can barely pay our car notes and whatnot. And these surgeries, from what I've been told, they cost anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if the average taxpayer can't, individually pay for this, the taxpayers in general actually pay for this. So this is actually being subsidized by the taxpayers, by the state of Texas, or whatever relevant state they're in. And so this is basically a waste of money that, there's so much money could be saved from this. And the rate of intersex births are as common as twins. So there could be so much money to be saved here. And, and if you basically push for surgery on someone who can barely even understand what mama and papa is, you're obviously going to make a mistake. So, a lot of these surgeries don't even work. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot of things that we can do to, basically create better policy and to also actually save money for the taxpayers.
And look, I agree with you, and that is above my pay grade. What you just described. No, I believe what you have to say that it is, they shouldn't be doing these surgeries to try to determine sex unless the person is grown and have determined what their sex is. But even beyond that, again, like I said, I am not competent enough to discuss that particular issue. But the thing about it is, wanting Medicare for all is not incumbent on any one of us knowing everything. It's incumbent on people understanding the broad outline of what is mathematical absolute and moving from what is mathematically absolute. And if it comes to saying what we are going to define as basic care, what society says it's going to define as basic care, and what society is willing to pay for as basic care, and then we move on from there. What we have right now is corporations deciding what is basic care, corporation deciding how to bastardize the market. I think you would agree with that.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. So let me go into, do you have something else to say now, or can I go into my soliloquy and then move on from there?
Oh, just a last note. Last session,
yes.
Myself with Senator Garcia and Kuma and Interact Advocates introduced SB 1342 to basically put a management on these surgeries for kids in the foster care system, and we're going to do that again this in 2019 session. And right now we're working with Sylvia Garcia, Sri Preston Kulkarni, and I forgot the other person. I should remember them, to create model legislation in the U.S. Congress. So just look forward to that.
Let me ask you to do an important favor, because we always want to push and make sure that we understand what's going on. So if you can go ahead and put that in the notes under the video so that we can kind of expand on that and make sure those people that are watching it later on know what's going on. So go ahead and put that in the notes and we'll take care of it from there. Okay, my friend?
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you so kindly. Okay, folks, let me tell you, I said there were three things that I wanted to do with the program today. One, explain how the system, the evil system works right now. I noticed today I spoke to a friend out in Starbucks, and I used the word evil, and she kind of cringed because she's like, don't say that. And I understand what she meant. I'm a coffee party guy. I believe in civility. But and not only that, I don't think the word evil is uncivil when used appropriately. In other words, if you are implementing a system that actively causes the death of millions, or to be accurate, that causes the death of thousands every year, I think if we had a mass killer who was killing thousands of people every day, you would see on TV, you would hear it in churches, and you would hear it everywhere that these people are evil. Well, we have our healthcare system that is exactly what it does today. Today, what it does is it murders several thousand people every year. It murders them by neglect. It murders them by thievery. It murders them by every type of causes. Let me specifically go to Texas, and then I'll go into the monologue. The federal government, under the Affordable Care Act, offered something known as the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. Every state qualified for the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. It provided them that service for free. In other words, all of us pay taxes, and it provided that service for free for the first 3 years. After that, the states were responsible for just 10% of the cost. Because that would have been more influx of money into the city, into the state, that would also improve the entire medical economy of that state. It would also cause the reduction in insurance rates in those states as well, as has happened in California and all the states that accepted the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. And why is that? Because you have more money coming in, because that means that right now everybody that can get care in the emergency room gets care, but you pay for it with your insurance premium. premium, so that's why your insurance premium is higher. If we had the Medicaid expansion for the Affordable Care Act, which we already pay for, we would not have had that increase in insurance price. So you can go directly to your Republican Congress people in the state of Texas and tell them that it is their fault why your premiums are so high. Nobody tells. One thing it drives many crazy, especially many progressives crazy, is that the news media in Texas refuses to put the blame on these high rates, firstly, on the Texas Republican politicians who have denied their citizens services that the federal government is given to them. The state simply said, we don't want it. And by the way, there's a case in Texas court right now trying to abolish the Affordable Care Act altogether. So for all of you listening in rural America, for all of you listening in the barrios, the ghettos, Apalachia, and all these other places, a vote this time around for any Republican candidate is a vote to harm your health care and to murder several of your fellow Americans. And I hate to put it that drastically, but that is what I must say because it is the truth. And what do I call murder? It's causing the untimely death of someone. Your politicians, given the programs that we have today, are effecting the murder of many of your citizens. Okay, so how does insurance really work, right? Right now, we have several insurance companies, hundreds of insurance companies, if not thousands of insurance companies. Each of these insurance companies, right, have a CEO, a CFO, their computer system to manage their database. They advertise all over on the TV and on newspapers and all of that to try to attract more people to their insurance companies. They hire consultants to target areas that have healthy people so that they can more target their advertising to people that are likely to be less sick. Why is that? First of all, the definition of insurance is, or that they practice, is to manage risk. Manage risk. Why do you have to manage risk of the population you're insuring? You manage risk of the population you're insuring to ensure that your stockholders will be made whole, to ensure that your executives will be paid. So you manage risk, and there are many ways to manage risk. Insurance companies, that is. You pay your premium. You pay your premium so that they will pay a bill. Now, when you pay them $1,000, they take out up to, technically speaking, a maximum of $18, but it's really more than that because of all the shenanigans they run. They take out a lot of money out of that money you spend that should have gone to pay healthcare. They take it and they pay for all those things that I just mentioned. The high salaries for CEOs, the high salaries for CFOs, the high salaries for all those engineers that have to program their computers for that particular task. All of that is a whole lot of money from the premiums that you give. And remember, all you are asking an insurance company to do is to pay a bill. You are paying insurance for this reason only. Here's the deal. You pay insurance because insurance is less than what the service that if you get sick is going to happen. You are making the bet that if you get sick, this insurance company will cover the bill. And that insurance company is making the bet that it'll pick up a whole lot of money from a whole lot of people that won't get sick so that when the few that get sick, they can afford to pay the bill. And there's leftover money to pay their shareholders and pay all those high price bonuses to the CEOs and everything else. That's all. It's a racket. Okay? They provide no service. The service they provide is not to you. The service they provide is to their shareholders. Your service is to paying your bill is a side benefit. But the goal of the insurance company, and you have to always remember this, the insurance company does not work for you. The insurance company works for the shareholder. Remember that private insurance companies work for the shareholder. You getting care is a side benefit, and that is the reason why their sole purpose is to find a way, find somehow not to pay your bill. The more of your bills that are denied by them, the more their shareholders make. That's the business model. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, my friend. That is the business model. That's the only reason they're selling insurance, because they can make a profit. But it is my contention that a profit in healthcare is immoral. And why is a profit in healthcare immoral? To pay for healthcare immoral? Because everybody gets sick, and we believe, those of us that are that think ethically, healthcare is a right. Healthcare is a right, and it's in the first preamble of the Constitution of we the people of the United States, in order to form a more fair for the welfare. I don't let me repeat it right now, okay? But even if it weren't in the Constitution was a flawed document in the beginning. We have already inferred that. We have already inferred that we were a moral people. And if we are a moral people, we can't help but get rid of insurance companies that for basic health care. We cannot help but do that. And the reason why, again, is because, my dear friends, their sole purpose is not to work for you. It's to work for the shareholders. Some people are going to then say, well, what about the nonprofit insurance companies? Well, the nonprofit insurance companies, they don't have shareholders per se, but they do have high-paid executives, and they do have their own advertising budgets, and they do have all these other things as well that makes the cost high. So what we are saying here is that is a model that is currently used by insurance. Okay? They don't work for you. They work for their shareholders, or they work for the executives who manage the insurance plan. Punto final. No hay nada más que decir por ahí. So that is how it works. Anybody says otherwise, they are lying to you. And that is what I must stress. The next point I'm going to make, I'm going to get into what exactly is Medicare for all, single payer Medicare for all. Now, think about this. If you don't have to pay millions of dollars to the executives, meaning the CEO, the CFOs, the accountants, and all that kind of stuff, if you don't have to pay for advertising, if you don't have to pay for all these other side benefits, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that are paid to all these externalities that have nothing to do with healthcare. If we don't have to pay that, that money can go directly into healthcare and take care of people, more people. It can also go into reducing the prices of premiums. Okay, that's what it's all about. You do not need somebody to skim money off of you to pay a bill. You don't. So this is the first part of healthcare that we want to tackle. Insurance is only the beginning, okay? But we start with insurance. We don't allow there to be insurance for basic healthcare. Now, if you want bells and whistles, if you want flowers brought to you every day, and you want to have a 3-course meal when served to you, you can, insurance companies, if they want to make a model for that, make a model for that. Go ahead and give people this high-priced services if that's what they want. Let them pay for that. Okay? I'm coming to you on the phone right now. Actually, it's a good point to stop, because my next point is to explain Medicare for all. But if the caller has a way for me to do that, use his call or her call to do that, I'll do so. So Skype caller, come on in.
Yes, my friend. This is Mike.
Yes, sir.
Indeed, it's time for United States be like same as the world. Same as India, EU, Canada, a single payer healthcare with full coverage, not just give you, basic coverage, or say only emergencies you can use it, and then you have to purchase additional health insurance like Israel, etc. No, not like that. A truly full coverage, it's time, because we have 90% of the people access to 10% of the wealth, and we have 10% of upper echelon has access to 90% of the wealth, and that's an injustice for all the people living in North America. So therefore, it's time.
I agree with you. I want to add something to what you just. What is your name, sir? Shoot. I want to add one thing to your. When you say full coverage, it is up to society to define what full coverage is, right? Because let me give an example. I don't want us to start saying full coverage in the manner that if somebody wants to have a beer sent up to their room or want to order a pizza in and all that kind of stuff, that it covers that. Why I said basic health care is I mean basic health care that keeps somebody alive. That makes sure that they don't go bankrupt, all that sort of thing. Now, a lot of people want more than that. A lot of people want to have a single room with padded beds and flowers brought to them into the room and all of that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about good, safe, clean, comfortable health care. That is what we want. Now, if you want fringe benefits,
exactly.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't think we're disagreeing here. It's just that how we define full coverage is what we as a society have to sit down.
But basic full coverage.
Yes.
I mean, something that you will never be homeless again.
Right.
Because your home,
yes,
you
sir.
have to sell your home and to pay the medical bills, or a lot of other issues, related to that.
Exactly.
So you once you have your house, you have all those medical, so you feel safe. Safety is a safety net. And it's time for us to have a safety net, not only Social Security. It's time to go even forward and give UBI. Means we need to, they're trying in different cities in the United States, like Stockton, California, and in European cities, Finland, Switzerland. Switzerland actually is giving everybody, regardless of what you make or what you're getting already, through your Social Security, whatever it is, you're getting. In Switzerland, they're giving 2,500 called UBI, is a basic income.
Hey, they call it basic income, but here's the deal. I understand what you're saying, but the topic today, my friend, isn't about basic income. I agree with basic income as well. I think basic income is actually a necessity to keep a capitalist economy going. So I am with you with the basic income. The reality is a capitalist economy ultimately fails unless there's a way to redistribute the grotesque wealth that gets created by design. I mean, if you take a look at the model, if you were to create a model of how money flows in a capitalist system, it does flow upwards. So when they talk about trickle down, it is a mathematical impossibility based on how it runs. I give a good example. Capital appreciates at, let's say, 7% a year. The economy grows at about 3 to 4% a year, between 2 and 4% a year. That means that if capital income is growing at a larger rate than the economy at large, it is a mathematical impossibility that those rich people are not extracting from the poor or extracting from the middle class. So that goes without saying. But I have to continue to get to the other pieces of my show. Do you want to add anything else, sir?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely you're right. But the question is, they call you socialist, they call you communist,
I don't
call
care.
you leftist.
I call myself a democratic socialist, and I will go sing that to every capitalist out there, and I would love them to debate me, and I can actually show that as far as humanity is concerned, what they're attempting to do has very little to do with humanity. And in front of an audience, I am pretty sure I would convince most that in fact, it is a disease that needs to be extricated. But folks, I have to go to the show, sir. So thank you so kindly for calling. I'm putting your mic on hold, sir. And if you want to stay on, you can.
Okay.
But anyhow, here's the important things that we have to add to this argument. Anyway, so I gave you how the system works right now, the way that the current private healthcare system works. It is an evil system. It is a system not designed for you. It's a system designed for the shareholders or the executives. Now, the second part of what we're talking about here is Medicare for all. What does Medicare for all? And we started with the caller who just spoke exactly how that would work. In effect, what we as a society would do is decide what we are going to call basic health care. In other words, what is this healthcare program going to cover? We could start with something like HR 676, which is a bill that's been on the books for eons right now. It was put out by, I don't remember the name of the congressman who has since resigned, but it is a program that covers the health care of everybody. It doesn't require you to pay a premium. Now, here's what they tell you. They tell you Medicare for all the government is going to increase the government budget by a whole bunch. And you know what? That is true. And then they are going to say, and that's going to make, they are going to extract all this money out of a whole lot of people. And that part is false, because we're already extracting money out of a whole lot of people. The only difference is we're doing it inefficiently. When they tell you, when the plutocracy tells you that the budget will blow up because of single payer healthcare, because the government is now paying all the healthcare bills, they are correct. Oh, Egberto, are they really correct? Yes, they are. The budget is going to zoom, but let me tell you by how much the budget is going to zoom. Right now, Americans that are paying $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, instead of giving that money to a private insurance company who skims that money and uses it to pay shareholders who are sitting down at their pools, that money is a premium that instead you pay with your into the general treasury. So therefore, it's going to be quite a bit less. If you're paying $1,000 a month for healthcare, I guarantee you're going to be paying a hell of a lot less, because remember, you no longer have to pay that private shareholder. You no longer have to give millions to those CEOs. You no longer have to advertise. You no longer have to pay the cost of all those buildings that these big health insurance companies have. You are no longer paying for that. Why should you pay for that? All these people do is pay a bill. Why not have the government print a check and pay the bill to the hospital who is giving you the service? We take out the middle man. So what happens now? The total cost of healthcare drops. But it also does a wonderful thing, because now healthcare is paid out of taxes. There are a lot of people in America right now who are able to afford insurance. These are people who sometimes they get hurt, they get sick, and they go to the hospital. They don't pay the bill, and you end up paying it anyway. The tax system is honest. It is progressive and it's honest. You pay into taxes what you can afford based on your income. All of that goes into the general treasury fund, which means that all those millions of people right now that are not paying any health insurance, but that you are paying for their health care when they get sick, because everybody has skin in the game. If it comes out of taxes, every single American citizen who pays taxes have a skin in the game. So it is, to put it bluntly, it is even a Republican idea, because nobody's going to slough off. Everybody that pays taxes has skin in the game. That is Medicare for all, because we're all paying taxes. We're all paying taxes. And when we go to the doctor, we don't have to go through a whole set of people are going to say, what insurance company are you with? I got to go call the insurance company. Somebody else have to be on the other line to figure out if your coverage covers that. No longer do those people have to be paid. They don't exist anymore. Why don't they exist anymore? Because that was a ridiculous, inefficient service anyway. You are going to get care. So you are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, billions of dollars to support employees that are simply there to regulate things, to make sure that they only pay a little bit so that shareholders and private insurance companies can make a lot of money. You get rid of that. You get rid of that. Single payer, your taxes. And instead of paying your premiums, which are taxes, because if you want to survive, you have to have insurance. Instead of paying it to them, you're paying it to we the people who put it together and then take care of all of those of us who are sick. People may say, oh, look at there, England is having a whole lot of problems. Yeah, but England, with all the problems England is having, every single English citizen is covered. Not only is every single citizen is covered, none of them can go bankrupt. They just go into the hospital, sign their name, they get in, and that's it. You have to, what insurance company are you with? How much did you pay your bill? I mean, it is crazy. It is evil. Our system is immoral. Completely immoral. It's a killer. You know how many people just not to deal with this system just stay sick and die? It is immoral. It is ungodly. For those of you who believe in God, It is an ungodly system that needs to be extricated. It's an ungodly system that must die. It must die. And it will only die if we get the guts as Americans and say, no more will we allow that plutocracy to lie to us and tell us these lies that make us believe this crap. Health insurance is a fraud. That's an absolute statement. It's a mathematical fraud. It's a moral fraud. And that we have allowed it for decades speaks to the efficiency, the effectiveness of groups like the Heritage Foundation, who have lied to you and told you to forget that you went to college, to forget that you went to high school, to forget that you went to elementary school and actually learned math. Now, what are the mitigating factors in implementation? Now, you notice I mentioned about all the folks that are going to be out of work. Yes, it's true. A lot of people, because to support the fraud, we had to employ a lot of people, and in employing all those people, guess who paid for it? It wasn't the shareholders who paid for it. It wasn't the executives who paid for it. You paid for it. So here's what the shareholders said. In order for us to pay your bill, we have to hire a whole bunch of people that you're going to pay for so that they can determine or find a way to deny you service. Amazing. You are paying for your service denial in order to make a few people rich. Think about that. You are paying for your service denial. You are paying for them denying you insurance. You're paying for them to deny you medical services so that they can get rich. So that they can get a piece of the action. Folks, we have to understand how this stuff works. So mitigation. Yeah, a lot of people are going to be out of work. And we have, for those of us that are compassionate people, when these laws are passed, I would be one of the first to start talking about mitigating the loss of jobs of the average worker, not the executives who've pilfered us. To hell with the executives who pilfered us. They're the ones who designed and defined these things to take your money away. They're the ones who cost you all this money as time goes on, and they try to put it into, well, this is how things work. And they put all kind of word into it to make it seem like these are complex issues. The only complexity that comes with insurance costing a whole lot of money is how to screw you best. That's the complexity in insurance. What they call it is risk management. Risk management. It is a lie, my dear brothers and sisters. Okay, let's see. It seems that, let's see, I'm missing a breaking story from my coffee party person here. Let's see what that breaking story is, because I'm part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. Okay, let's see. The Times today is taking the rare step of publishing an anonymous op-ed essay. We have done, let's see. Oh, wow. I got to get into this. Thank you, Devlin Molyneux. The Times today is taking the rare step of publishing an anonymous op-ed essay. We have done so at the request of the author, a senior official in the Trump administration whose identity is known to us and whose job would be jeopardized by this disclosure. We believe publishing this essay anonymously is the only way to deliver an important perspective to our readers. We invite you to submit a question about the essay. President Trump is facing a test of his presidency unlike any faced by a modern leader. It is not just that the special counsel looms large or that the country is bitterly divided over Mr. Trump's leadership or even that his party might well lose the House to the opposition downfall. The dilemma which does not fully grasp is that many of the senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclination. I would know I am one of them. So you have somebody who is saying we are undermining the president, and they're writing directly from the White House. Check it out. It is printed right now at the New York Times. Devlin Molyneux, our direct emeritus board member for Coffee Party, thank you for alerting us to that. Very, very important story at New York Times. I need to close the program down. We are at the end of the program. Thank you, Devlin, for telling us about that. So, folks, we are in the process of all those jobs that are going to be lost on health Medicare for all. In the process, what we are going to do in the process is we are going to take care of those people. we will find jobs, but in the interim, we will create programs that will make them whole. How we do that is above my pay grade. It is just something that has to be done. Because the model that we have allowed to exist in this country for decades, the evil model that we've allowed to exist, must end. Must end. Folks, don't forget, go to the New York Times. Apparently, we have a person inside of the White House trying to protect the American people, and they wrote an anonymous op-ed in the New York Times. Check it out. New York Times, check it out. But before I go, I got to make my pitch. I forgot about that all day. Folks, this is a progressive show. We need you to remember that. Please go ahead and support Politics Done Right at patreon.com/politics done right. patreon.com/politics done right. This is the end of the program. My name is Egberto Willis, and you know what? You know how I close this baby out? I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.